Many greetings to you. Sunday evening, putting together a new Totally Football show, reacting to the latest round of action in the Premier League. An all-star cast assembled here in the Totally studio. Matt Davies-Adams joins us, fresh back from the game. Matt.
Yeah, raced here. Looking forward to talking about an up and down weekend, personally, in the Premier League.
Right. Some Forest thoughts in there, some Chelsea thoughts, and more. I shouldn't wonder. Stafford-Bloor is literally here, physically manifesting in the studio.
Live and dangerous.
Wow. Yes. You'll be familiar with Seb if you listen to our Tuesday Euro shows, and you appear in other bits as well. But Seb, going to be exciting to hear from you in the Euro show in person about the Klassiker, Borussia Dortmund and Bayern.
Fun old weekend. Familiar themes, some things we've talked about before, but it was still a fun game.
Right. Big game for the Bundesliga leaders, and of course it's been a big weekend of that kind of thing in the Premier League as well. Daniel Storey, you were across all of it as ever, and you're here with us.
I am indeed. Good evening, James.
Good evening to you, Daniel Storey. Good evening to everybody who's already been on touch on the YouTube comments. Kawandas, hopefully no Adrian Clark. Adrian's not with us this evening, although
he was, and then he saw the comment and we sent him away. Yeah, he's just next door in the dark room by himself now.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Arsenal still top of the table, top of the Champions League in every competition. It's getting to some people. There's a lot to discuss about what Arsenal got up to this weekend and all the matches, really, because it was quite an historic weekend. It's the highest scoring round of the season so far. Matt, it was the first time we've ever had all the games on a single day, ending with the exact same scoreline. Today, Sunday, all four of them ending 2-1 to the home side. This weekend also is the earliest that St Tottenham's Day has ever taken place in a season, a fact which has gone sadly unremarked across the blogosphere. And also, it saw the game with the most corners. It saw the game... No, I'll say that again. And also, with Arsenal's 2-1 win against Chelsea, they became the team that scored the most goals from corners in the course of a single season ever, Daniel Storey.
Yeah, I think I'd back them to extend that record on the basis that was pretty much the whole of the game on Sunday. Yeah, I think the moment of the weekend was Jordan Pickford's save for Everton against Newcastle. We normally talk about our favourite goals, but that was an absolutely remarkable reaction save from Pickford.
It was an amazing save. It was a pretty impressive performance as well against Newcastle. What else happened in this round of games? Which round of games was it? Remind me. Are we 29 or is that coming up midweek?
That would be, I think 29 is midweek.
That's right, 28 this weekend.
This is 28,
okay. Let's hear what else happened this weekend, round 28 of the season. 36 goals all told, the highest tally of the campaign so far. Arsenal had two of them as they beat Chelsea 2-1 to stay 5 points clear of Manchester City, having played a game more. City, the previous day, 1-0 winners at Leeds. That's their sixth straight victory. Chelsea, after Sunday's defeat to Arsenal, dropped to sixth in the table, 3 points outside the Champions League places. Above them now are both Manchester United, who came from a goal down on Sunday to win 2-1 at home to Crystal Palace, and Liverpool, who on Saturday won their fourth straight match, beating West Ham at home 5-2. Much to West Ham's relief, meanwhile, their rivals in the relegation race both also lost this weekend. Forest, 2-1 at Brighton, all three goals coming in the opening 15 minutes of that game. And Spurs, also Sunday afternoon, losing 2-1 at Fulham. Spurs remaining 4 points off the drop and Forest just 2. Also this weekend, Everton, as mentioned, won 3-2 at Newcastle. That's the Magpies' fifth defeat in the last 6. Burnley and Brentford had a chaos classic. The Bees winning 4-3 after a couple of key VAR interventions. It was 1-1 interventions, I think, tradition. Interventions. The Bees winning 4-3 after a couple of key VAR interventions. It was 1-1 for Bournemouth and Sunderland. And finally, last Friday, Wolves beat Villa 2-0. For Villa, that's now just one win in their last 6. For Wolves, it's their second win of the season. And finally, they move past Derby onto 13 points. The historic worst team ever raced that. No longer in the running. Extraordinary stuff. We'll come on to that game later on. We're going to begin, though, with the match which just concluded the round at the Emirates. Arsenal 2, Chelsea 1. Is it comms of the second goal, Timber? Right. Yep, Timberland. Timberland for Arsenal, who clear another hurdle. Seb was here in the studio. We were watching this together, Matt. You were commentating at the ground. I won't say which, but at a ground. Seb's question was, how did Chelsea lose that game? What would your reaction be?
I would say that it was a combination of Arsenal being very good at corners, Robert Sanchez throwing in a Robert Sanchez 18 months ago performance, and what has now become predictable, indefensible red card for a Chelsea player at a pretty crucial stage of the game. I thought it was quite a low quality fare, I've got to be honest, all told, and maybe that's illustrated by the fact that all 3 goals came from corners, a lot of misplaced passes, particularly in the first half from Chelsea players. But I think Seb is right in his allusion there that Chelsea will be wondering how they didn't get something from the game, and not for the first time this season against Arsenal, possibly. But it's a good sign for Arsenal, isn't it? If they don't play well and they get the 3 points anyway, and this was their penultimate fixture against one of the current top 6 for the rest of the season. They got that monster match against City. Other than that, you would think it would be, if not plain sailing, then certainly less choppy waters than it might otherwise been. So a very, very significant win for them, and a very damaging defeat for Chelsea, given that United and Liverpool both won this weekend in terms of Champions League qualification.
All right. Villa's form will be of some comfort to Liam Rosenia and his cohorts, but yes, a concern to see them drop down to 6th. Liam Toomey posting that Arsenal haven't been great today, Sunday, and their fans are audibly anxious, but they have discipline and a great goalkeeper. Chelsea have neither. Yourself, Matt, defining their performance as sloppier than prison porridge at half-time.
This was Forest.
Oh, that was about Forest.
Yeah.
Could it also apply to... No.
I'm too deeply on the payroll at Chelsea to say something like that publicly, James.
I have a Robert Sanchez question. So I check out of English football when I go home, and I've come back and it seems like the Robert Sanchez conversation is in exactly the same place as when I was last here. Has there been a kind of an uptick in his performances? Because it feels like this has been part of his repertoire for some time.
I think that there has been an uptick, but it was noticeable from this game, and this must have been a message from Rosenia, the amount of time he was taking when he had the ball before he made a decision and cleared it. And that seemed to give him the yips and give Arsenal encouragement, because that nervous crowd that Daniel talks about was there from the off. Sorry, Liam talks about was there from the off. But then it all became about baiting Sanchez whenever he got the ball and jeering him and trying to make him make a mistake, which he did a couple of times, albeit not punished for it. But yeah, that winning goal was extraordinary, and that you see a keeper protest that vociferously. You think something must have happened.
Right.
There's definitely something's happened. There's
no
way that he's just not got off his line and then Timbers headed it in without jumping off the ground. That
because
can't be
you can't sell a foul like that in the VAR era. And also, the louder the protestation, the sillier you eventually look when it's replayed in the stadium as well.
That might not have been a foul. Were other incidents deserving of some referee or VAR attention? We'll come on to that topic perhaps now, as we ask Daniel what he made of the performance from both sides.
I thought the goalkeepers effectively decided the game. I thought Raya he's the best goalkeeper in the Premier League at the moment. He made a fabulous save from the kind of Declan Rice elbow that ended up not mattering because Chelsea scored from the next corner. But just the confidence he breathes in the players around him is night and day to Chelsea's team. I don't think Arsenal play particularly well. I don't think any of their outfield players are at peak performance at the moment, but Raya is pulling them through. They don't look shaky in open play, but they did look shaky at corners, which I thought was interesting, because Mikel Arteta after the game was like, it's not just about attacking corners, it's about defending them. And Reece James's delivery was phenomenal from open play and from corners. And then the sending off changes the game. I think Chelsea probably could have got into it and certainly could have played on that Arsenal nervousness even more. If they'd had 11, but with 10, they sort of left it late to bring on Leon Delap and really do the kind of kitchen sink approach. They would have probably done that earlier if they'd had 11. And Neto, I mean, I was impressed by Sanchez's moaning, but Neto, I think, was moaning about his first yellow card after getting the second yellow card, which I thought was quite a niche. Maybe that could be the future. We get IFAB to look at first yellow cards when you get the second one, just for that real minimum interference hit from VAR.
He didn't know that he got it. I think he just didn't know he'd been booked the first time.
You think?
I think that was his issue. Yeah. So, and I think that
see.
maybe he doesn't make the tackle second time round, but yeah,
You'd hope.
don't mouth off at the referee, and if you do, don't walk away when he's booking you, because then you'll know. But you'd expect one of his teammates maybe to fill him in.
Indeed. Daniel, you mentioned Declan Rice's elbow, which in and amongst wrapping itself around a Chelsea player, also raised itself to touch the ball in a manner that often gets sanctioned in football matches. Neither that nor his grappling received any attention from the referee or VAR. There is a feeling among people who don't support Arsenal that they get away with an awful lot. What is your take from your incredibly objective position?
I think it looks like they get away with a lot from corners because they score from quite a lot of corners. I think the fewer corners you score from, the less you watch slow motion replays what everyone's doing at corners. I think pretty much everybody is doing that grappling. I did think it was a penalty. I thought he moved his elbow towards the ball and he was creating the contact that they said was mitigation. But then Chelsea scored from the next corner anyway, so thankfully that was moot. But yeah, I think it's just a case that Arsenal's corners are in absolute hyper-focus because they're so good at them, and they are as good, or they are better than everyone else in terms of creating chances and scoring goals from them. So therefore, and they're top of the league. So I think there's an inevitable double focus on that. I'm sure they do things that outside the box would be given as free kicks, but then I think everybody does that. I think that's just like my frustration with it is that sort of feels like 40% of the sport at the moment is working out who's going to be better at those corner routines. So, and we're just in a situation where we'll get through that and it will change and things will, there'll be directives about trying to force it to change and defensive coaches will work out a way of stopping it. But for now, it does feel like a little bit of a cheat code, and therefore there's this very bright focused spotlight on everything that happens in the penalty area.
Can I add a layer to that? Because I think at the moment we've got kind of a very reactive refereeing mindset here. And each week there seems to be an issue that comes from that kind of situation. Yeah, it often features Arsenal because they're so good at attacking set pieces. But incident happens, incident gets criticised online in the mainstream media. Referees take a penalty across the week and then they overcorrect by the time the next weekend comes. And then when the next issue happens, you have more lenience, stricter application of the laws, one of those things. It feels like we're in that kind of boom-bust cycle at the moment.
Are Spurs 1 week out of sync with the referees on that?
Yeah, it has been like that for quite a few years now. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. We'll get on to Spurs and their,
excellent, yes.
and their match away at Fulham earlier on Sunday. But the red card situation, so that's 9 now. Bill Edgar of the Times pointing out you could almost make a full Chelsea team of the players who have received a red this season. Sanchez, Gusto Fofana, Chalobah, Cucurella, Casado, then a vacancy, Neto, João Pedro, and another vacancy, and then, of course, Delap. That's a problem that's not getting any better under the new manager.
It's not, no. And this is where one of the many differences in the quality of Chelsea and Arsenal right now shines through, because Arsenal's housery is fine-tuned perfectly. That's not a criticism on my part or sour grapes or anything like that. But there are instances in the game like where in the first half, Nketiah messes about waiting to take a throw in. Moises Caicedo loses his head, pushes him off the pitch, lucky not to get booked for it. Enzo Fernandez doesn't agree with the decision. Occasional Chelsea captain, what does he do? Picks the ball up, slams it into the ground, gets a yellow card. These are acts of ill discipline that border on idiocy that you don't get from Arsenal, because they've worked out where the line is, how close you can get to it, and when the referee's not looking at the line. And that's how they play, and it works brilliantly for them. And Chelsea just seem really immature in comparison to that. And some of those players that you named there, James, like Fofana, who was sent off last week, and Cucurella and Neto, these aren't the Chelsea kids. These are experienced Premier League players. You should know better than that. And it was a problem for Mauricio Pochettino to a lesser extent. It definitely was one for Enzo Maresca, and it's probably not realistic to expect Liam Rossini to come in and fix it all in what is 7th Premier League game in charge. But it's a big thing on his to-do list for the summer at the very latest.
Okay. Daniel, we've listed a lot of things that we didn't like about the game. What did you enjoy about it?
I enjoyed the two right backs. I thought were two of the game's best players. During Timber was kind of doing that sort of all action thing where he tries to overlap or underlap Saka. I thought he's been really good. He's probably been the best right back in the Premier League this season. But if he's got a competitor for that in terms of certainly over the last 2 or 3 months, then Reece James has been phenomenal. I mean, he is like, his open play crossing has improved so much. He's now rightly the corner taker because he can whip those crosses in. I think it was like counted 4 or 5 times where he was 2 yards behind either Martinelli or Trossard, and yet gets back and kind of shapes his body in a way to take the ball and then move away from the Arsenal player and move up the pitch in one movement. He's in such good form. I so hope he stays fit for the summer, because he should be England's first choice right back if he's playing like this, because we know he can now play in midfield. We know he can play right side of a defensive three if he has to. We know he can be an attacking fullback and a crosser and a set piece taker. Matt will know this more than me, and I'm sure he'd love to pour praise on as well, but he's just a complete fullback at the moment. He's leading Chelsea, and he's kind of been let down by people around him.
Yeah, it's good to see him playing fullback every week as well. He is a very functional sort of defensive midfielder. He can do that, and he's actually played as part of a back three for Rossini at Napoli this season. But when he's at right back, and he can trust his body that it's going to get him up and down the pitch for 90 minutes, and there aren't many people better, and he's a huge favourite of Thomas Tuchel. So I would be amazed, unless there's a fitness issue, if he wasn't one of England's nailed-on starters.
Producer Charlie making the point that all 3 goals today coming from corners from potential England stars of the summer, Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice being the other one.
Bukayo Saka had a couple of really nice touches in that game, which is great, because I felt like the last, can't really put a timeline on it, but probably 2 months, 3 months, he's looked a little bit heavy-legged. He's looked a little bit like he's suffered from the amount of contact he takes, and some of the kind of the delicacy of his game has been missing. But I thought that was back. I thought he looked really sharp.
On the corner subject, if the Premier League is now adjusted where possible to the likes of Arsenal and their set-piece routines, are England about to take the World Cup by storm? Corner it up.
It feels like this is kind of us revisiting like a topic from 20 years ago, where we go into World Cup and go, oh, he plays with so much pace and power. Let's just do that at the World Cup. And maybe we could just corner everybody into oblivion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least there's no need for Harry Kane to be taking him this time.
Yeah.
Indeed, so. Daniel.
The other thing we should say in terms of bigger picture stuff for the title race is that Declan Rice was taken off with an injury. I actually thought he looked a bit leggy in the first half, and then he had an instant where he ran for the back pass, outpaced the Chelsea player, but then sort of overhit the back pass and went out for a corner, and he was definitely limping after that. Arteta said he will have a look at him for Brighton in midweek. It goes without saying that Arsenal have got a lot of games between now and the end of the season in 4 competitions, and also that Declan Rice is, having said all about that about during Timber and David Raya, is Arsenal's most important player. If he misses any time, it's going to be really interesting how they work that midfield, because it's Rice's dynamism that stops them getting stale when they're passing it around the back and giving it to Zubimendi and he's playing it back again. It's Rice generally that says, I'm going to take the ball forward to someone. Finding the other person to do that, I don't think it's Christian Norgard. I don't think that Emirates Eze can play that deep, so it'll be interesting to know what the solution is there if he misses time.
Okay. In the meantime, we saw a brief cameo from Kai Havertz making his return from injury, which is very much on the plus side of things for Arsenal. Santiago EH2TS says, what do you guys make of the Champions League draw? Best case scenario for Arsenal, and also the worst case scenario for Chelsea. Chelsea, who will be facing Paris Saint-Germain, who they did beat last time they met in the final of the Club World Cup. Arsenal, meanwhile, get Liverpool.
Him as well, hasn't he? Liam Rosini has beaten PSG with Strasbourg.
That's also true. So maybe not such a problem there. Arsenal, meanwhile, didn't just get what looks like an easier opponent, but they also got the right side of the draw, because all the previous, the last 10 years worth of Champions League winners are all on the other side of the bracket to the Gunners, who will begin against Leverkusen, Bayer Leverkusen, and then they'll get the winners, if they get past Bayer Leverkusen, of the Bodo Glimt Sporting clash. Bayer Leverkusen against Arsenal, Seb.
Arsenal. So in my mind, and this is meant to sound patronising in any way, the Leverkusen, given where they are, which is in the midst of a rebuild, following all the exits over the summer, them to get through the group stage into the knockout rounds in itself is a triumph. I don't think they have anything like the experience or the nous or frankly, the tools to hurt Arsenal or to deal with Arsenal's weapons. If Leverkusen can learn from that game, let's employ a euphemism there, it could be part of the education for quite a few of their talented young players.
All right, then. All right. Anything else on Arsenal-Chelsea? Or should we move on to Manchester City, who, if Arsenal weren't entirely convincing for their victory, I think the same charge could be levelled at Pep's side, who very nearly went 2 or 3 goals behind in the opening 20 minutes of this game at Ellen Road on Saturday. Daniel.
Yeah, it was really hard going. It's the type of victory we've not really seen from Manchester City, and then over the last couple of weeks they've done similar against Newcastle, where they got ahead and then were pegged back, scored almost immediately, and then suffered in the second half, as Guardiola said. They suffered in the first half at Ellen Road. There's a cliche that rings incredibly true, and there's some stat about Leeds at Ellen Road and games that start after 5 p.m. I think they were unbeaten in 25 matches. There's the atmosphere just gets to you. It doesn't matter if you're really, really, really good at football and really, really experienced. There's something about that atmosphere that if the tails get up, it's really hard to deal with. And Leeds were a storm in that first 25 minutes. They should have had the lead because Dominic Calvert-Lewin should have scored. A chance that he has been finishing all season, and it would be really useful for Leeds if he didn't stop doing that now. But we have to praise City for the way they kind of soaked that up, and they killed the game by scoring at the perfect time. And Semenyo is increasingly becoming this kind of dual threat attacker, in that he's nominally starting on the left. He is driving forward with the ball when they get it, and they play quite vertically at times. And then he's almost, like over the last few weeks, he seems to be making these Raheem Sterling runs where Guardiola teaches a wide player to become a penalty box poacher if the situation demands it. And obviously with no Erling Haaland there, the situation did demand it. So he scored one of those 6-yard box goals. They've always been Guardiola's favourite, the cut back to someone dashing in the 6-yard box to score. And then, City managed the second half really, really well. Better than I thought. When I saw that first 15 minutes, I thought this feels like City sort of crumple. And I think they would have done 3 or 4 months ago. But the difference that Guéhi and Semenyo have made is absolutely massive. If they win the title this season, then it will be because of those 2 January signings.
All right. If they win the title of the season, it may well come after they've done a run. They're now on 6 wins in a row in all competitions. Is it a run? Is it the run?
It's a run, certainly. I think actually it was a sort of different kind of City performance, this, wasn't it? And other than that opening spell, I didn't feel like Leeds were ever really troubling them. They had 14 attempts in the game, and 2 of them were on target. It did feel, certainly in the second half, like big brother had let little brother punch himself out and then was just going to slap him about and wait for the win. But Daniel's spot on about Guéhi and Semenyo. I think you obviously can't always do this, and you shouldn't always do this, but particularly in the winter window, that it shows the benefits of buying from within the Premier League. You look at how those two have just completely hit the ground running for City, and this is not an easy team to come into, right? If you're coming into Pep Guardiola's teams, what Guéhi said after his first game, right? There's a lot of detail here for me to try and take on, but the fact that they are familiar with the environment that they're playing in, you compare that to, say, Wirtz or Šeško or Gyökeres, who took a while to adapt to the Premier League and now look like really good signings, but didn't hit the ground running in the way that Guéhi and Semenyo have. And it's kind of difficult to see where they drop points between now and the Arsenal game, right? They got Forest at home Wednesday night. Yes, please, rotate as much as you want for that. Then they got West Ham, Palace and Chelsea to come. They've got a great record against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in recent years. So right, they're going to take it all the way, aren't they? It's this brilliant situation we've got that if both teams win all their games, they'll win the league.
They'll both be the champions.
Yeah, if either team wins their game, I should say, because they play each other, of course.
What an incredible option that is, though, to have. In the middle of a season, you're able to take 2 first-rate Premier League players who are conditioned to the league standard, who know how to deal physically with the competition.
Why doesn't every team do that?
I have no idea. Yeah. Lack of foresight, just general myopia within football.
2 great pros as well, by the looks of things, from what we know of them.
2 really well-liked people.
Yeah, who can take on board instruction and implement it quickly. And great buys.
City, like Arsenal, also have a lot of fixtures coming up, not just in the Premier League. The Champions League draw has given them the rare treat of Real Madrid.
How boring.
9 meetings in the last five seasons. Yeah. But that's the magic of football, Daniel. There might be the same names, but somehow the cards have been shuffled. You get a different story each time, no?
Yeah, we all wanted the European Super League, really, didn't we? So we always wanted Manchester City to play Real Madrid every single season. Yeah, I mean, it is like it's the tie of the round and it's great. I think City are very, very well prepared to deal with that Real Madrid threat. I would back them to go through, but it will be interesting in terms of energy expended before other big games, because like Matt says, they've actually got that tie falls quite nicely in terms of City's fixtures. But if they do get through that, I don't see the strength of depth in every single area, which seems a mad thing to say about City, but they're reliant on some key individuals at the moment. I just, yeah, I think they'll beat. I do think they'll beat Real Madrid. I think they will.
Okay.
I think they are too complete to not to.
Okay.
Can I propose a different tie of the round? Because also, Dan and I are roughly the same age, so I'm really disappointed that he didn't go for Newcastle Barcelona for the kind of the Aspria, like the nostalgia of that game. That's you can imagine it. St James's Park, Newcastle Barcelona, kitchen sink thrown at Barcelona. That could be one of the great nights of the season, I think.
Maybe it will be, Seb. Maybe it will be. We'll talk more about this in the Euro show, which we will with you on Tuesday morning.
It's a great podcast, that one.
It is. It's very useful if you want to keep
full of
abreast.
Information, detail.
Yeah, you've watched the Bundesliga, so we don't have to.
Yeah.
You've got all the details.
We send Horncastle to weird restaurants so that he can. Yeah, absolutely.
This midweek, Arsenal make the trip to Brighton, where they will be looking for their third win of the season against the Seagulls, while Man City, as Matt mentioned, will be taking on Prison Porridge, a.k.a. Nottingham Forest. Next up, we'll talk about what Forest did this Sunday afternoon, and Spurs and others too. Yeah, straight in. Early Sunday games with West Ham's defeat on Saturday at Liverpool. Relegation battle looked interesting. A chance for Forest and Spurs to maybe get a little bit of breathing space between themselves and the Hammers. Didn't work out that way. First up, Seb, you were able to catch some of Spurs and their trip to Craven Cottage to take on Fulham, where the Cottagers proceeded to do the double over them.
Yeah, we're live, aren't we? So I need to temper some of my response to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Did you enjoy Harry Wilson's terrifically taken opener?
No, not at all. I think there are a couple of Spurs fans in my sort of WhatsApp groups who sort of saw relegation as a kind of like a doomsday situation, not really going to happen. It's something we have to respect. I think that shifted a little bit because this team has barely got a pulse. Its standards are shockingly low. It has no self-confidence. There's really been, the needle has not shifted yet under Igor Tudor. So if the logic was to get enough of a new manager bounce out of trouble and to capitalise on Forest and West Ham losing this weekend and being able to kind of put some distance there, hasn't worked. Individually, some of these players still don't seem to be taking enough responsibility for the situation. I think there are a couple of exceptions to that. Richarlison, bless him, is doing his very best despite not being in peak physical condition. Some of the rest of them seems to be this idea among some of these Tottenham players that if it happens, it happens. I'll move on to bigger and better things. Not sure some of these players' reputations are as bulletproof as they imagine them to be. I don't think there are many moves to Real Madrid or Bayern Munich in the future for some of them. And if they go down, it's worth some of these players also remembering that's something that's going to be on their CV for the rest of their careers too, because it's not just the fans that suffer. It's oh, you were part of that team. Okay, well, I'm the sporting director for this elite football team. No, I don't want that in my dressing room. Thank you very much. So wearing signs, and all of a sudden, one of my friends said to me after the game, that game against Crystal Palace midweek is almost as big as the game in Bilbao now from the summer. And I don't really disagree.
Really?
Yeah, because
Palace was the last team that Spurs won against in the Premier League. That was on the 28th of December.
It's one of the worst games of football I've ever seen, and it was a victory. And it was absolutely terrible. It had no redeeming features as a football match. It was dreadful.
James Moore on The Athletic saying that the arrival of Conor Gallagher, one of the January reinforcements, is actually... Sorry, not one of the previous windows reinforcements, has actually made the team worse. What does he mean and why?
I think the point James is making, not going to try and speak for him, is that Conor Gallagher came in as a sort of slightly panicked response to the situation. Didn't necessarily have the attributes that the team needed. That midfield is crying out for technical ability, forward passing ability. Conor Gallagher really more of a runner. He's more of a legs. He's more of a sort of a tenacious 8 than someone that can receive the ball with his facing his own defence and play it up the pitch and get Spurs moving. Can't do that. And it hasn't worked so far. I'm not sure why. I dare say he joined to play for one head coach. Now he's playing for another who's an interim. That probably hasn't helped, but no, hasn't been the £40 million reinforcement that we hoped it would be. And more troublingly, there are no green shoots. There's nothing at the moment that you look at and think, yeah, I can imagine that getting better in 3 weeks. And yes, if we can just develop this little aspect of the game, then we'll get out of trouble. Don't see it at all. It's respectfully absolutely rubbish.
Just watching you talking on our YouTube channel, and I'm very conscious of that. It's a good thing I wore the light coloured hoodie and you've gone with the dark.
We talked about this. We said, I also haven't shaved for a few days.
Yes.
We're both wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that people can't make that joke. It's not funny when people do that.
Daniel Storey, Harry Wilson. Is
Yeah.
that what you would like to talk about?
No, I was gonna. Last week I said I couldn't work out what Igor Tudor was doing in terms of the system or the shape. And to be fair to him, he changed it, and I still can't work out what Igor Tudor was doing with the team selection and the shape. He picked Dominic Solanke and Rana Kolomwani as two strikers, and that's good because last week Kolomwani looked so frustrated and isolated. But then Solanke has clearly been told to drop really deep into central midfield. So he became an auxiliary average midfielder, and Kolomwani was still left isolated up front. To accommodate that, he picked Conor Gallagher on the right and Xavi Simons on the left, which doesn't do any of them any favours. Neither of them could even get... I'd forgotten after about half an hour that Gallagher was on the pitch, and Simons I only noticed because he kept dribbling and losing the ball. And then if that wasn't enough, he's picking Archie Gray still at left back, which must be the most obvious... Like if you're an opposition analyst, it must be the most obvious weakness. And that's what happened. Fulham just got Calvin Bassey to put direct balls onto Archie Gray, and they couldn't deal with it because Alex Iwobi was on him, Harry Wilson was on him. And so lo and behold, they conceded the first goal because, firstly, they were too weak defensively, but I do think it was a foul. I think they got unlucky with that, particularly after last week. But the second one is just... It looks a really good goal and it is a really good finish, but it's like playing mannequins. It's just no one's tracking a man. It's just give and go and then have a shot. And if it doesn't go in, don't worry, we'll give you another chance in 5 minutes anyway. Fulham could have been 4-0 up by the time Spurs scored, and there was a bit of a rally late on when Richarlison came on, but it's just nothing. I don't get what he's trying to do at all. I can't remember who was on Twitter, but I think it was Jack Pitt-Brook, was saying the defence looks really bad and they don't look like scoring, and I thought, well, that's absolutely true. And also the midfield's terrible too. And the only reason you're not mentioning that is because that's even more obvious. So I just don't know what he's trying to do with the team at all.
I'm going to defend him a little bit because do you remember the comment Rafa Benitez made a few years ago where he talked about like the duvet and how you needed to move it around and you'd always expose, if it was too small, you would expose a foot, you get cold, your arm would get cold. Same thing with Igor Tudor, because like you can have a plan, but then you come to your training session and you look at who's in form, who's fit, who's actually good enough to do anything, and you don't have a perfect solution to aim for. In my mind, selecting this Tottenham team at the moment is about hiding weaknesses as best you can rather than trying to find strengths. And they're just, I'm not sure it's possible.
The duvet is too small, and they don't have any clean sheets.
It's not even a duvet. It's like
Harry Wilson, do you like his goal?
I did like his goal, yeah. Igor Tudor, I think, has gone a bit early on being so critical of the referees. Obviously, there's a nudge in the back, which you get the reverse of last week. But Harry Wilson is having a tremendous season. And we're at that stage of the campaign where we say, great chance for Fulham to have a late run at getting a European place here before they inevitably don't do that. But 40 points, 3 behind Brentford in
Everton
7.
in that mix as well.
Yeah, Everton in that mix as well. Baffling Everton, who we'll come on to. But nice little run for Fulham coming up. They host West Ham, then they got Forest, then they got Burnley. So get yourself in that mix.
Although Burnley, certainly a very different proposition, as we'll be discussing very, very shortly. But the other 2:00 game featuring a side in the relegation mix was Nottingham Forest's visit to Brighton, which, Daniel, you were watching. And it was the first Premier League game this season to see 3 goals scored in the opening 15 minutes. There were no further goals, but what an exciting opening quarter of an hour it was.
That's the real quiz. Yeah. I mean, Brighton, who have been on a bad run until last weekend, were miles better than Forest. Forest scored one really nice goal. Morgan gives right from outside the area, but just don't create enough clear-cut chances. Haven't all season. I don't suspect will until the end of the season. They have now added to that particular bow the string of being weirdly defensively incompetent and allowing two players at the back post to be marked by one person, then looking a little bit surprised when one of them gets a bit of space. That's how both of the goals came from. Mistakes, the first from Nico Williams, I think Matt Sells probably should save it. And then, kind of mistake from Williams and Murillo, who just looked tired throughout. There's just no energy to Forest. I don't know if it's a result of Thursday night, although they made quite a lot of changes for that game, so it's not an excuse. But yeah, having just said what we said about Igor Tudor, the Vitor Pereira Premier League managerial bounce hasn't happened either.
Indeed not. Brighton winning back-to-back matches for only the second time this season in the Premier League. Curiously, the previous occasions were also against Brentford and Forest. Forest, having got through on Thursday night, will be up against Midtjylland again. And last time that didn't go well, Matt.
Didn't go great, particularly not for Ange Postecoglou. No, I was at the Fenerbahce second leg on Thursday, and that was a pretty spectacular mismanagement of the game as well. Vitor Pereira obviously likes playing with the back three. Did it for 45 minutes, went so well he had to make 4 subs and change the formation at half-time. So everything about Forest screams relegation.
Really?
Why is it? Because I look at that team and I look at the players available and I don't understand why it's so bad.
But if you're asking why is it so bad, surely Spurs is the more egregious example.
But we want to move on from that, though. Okay. And I want to shift it back towards Matt and
you can,
and Dan. But honestly, I don't. What is the flaw?
You can use excuses, and there's some legitimacy to them about the number of games with having the Europa League as well, which is something that as a club Forest aren't used to. You can use the fact that they're on the 4th manager of the season, but there comes a point where there's got to be some accountability. And personally, I've tried to give the players as much rope as possible and say, well, Sean Dyche was inhibiting Elliot Anderson, who's not had a good game for, 3 or 4 months. We've got a brilliant back five. It was so good last season. Murillo, Nico Williams absolutely stank the place out today. There comes a point where some of these players have got to start taking responsibility. I don't think you'd have any of Forest's attacking options in any of the other teams who are struggling at the moment this season. So there's lots of mitigation for why they're so poor, but some people who are better than they're showing need to put their hands up, and some of the people who had a combined £200 million spent on them in the summer should be doing a lot more to put pressure on the places of those regulars who've been underperforming all season.
That's the similarity with Spurs. There's so much noise around the first team that people forget to point fingers at the first team. Right. It becomes easy to kind of not hide, but not take responsibility.
Brighton, having won 2 straight games, will be hosting Arsenal. That's on Thursday, I think. Daniel, from what you saw of them today, how tough a test will that be for the league leaders?
Yeah, they've got the energy back. They were passing really quickly through midfield to one-touch stuff. And Danny Welbeck scored, which means he's now scored 10 goals in his consecutive seasons. The oldest player to do that, I think, in Premier League history.
All right.
He needs one more to break his goal record for a Premier League season as well. So, yeah, they only needed to be okay today to win. They'll obviously need to be a lot better than that against Arsenal. But if they get that kind of give and go in midfield, they can break on you really smartly and really quickly. And actually, that's what Chelsea did well in the first half against Arsenal. So it'll be more of the same, I think. They're not as good at corners, which might be a worry. But yeah, I think if they can start quickly and kind of play with that energy, the fans are wanting to like that team again. It's just been a rotten run recently.
Okay, that game coming up on Wednesday, not Thursday. Man City up against Forest. Since promotion in 2022, Forest have visited the Etihad 3 times, have had 3 defeats and have scored no goals whatsoever, but there's always next time.
Yeah, lost 6-0 in one of those. One before we move on from this game, there's a great stat which they wheeled out on the Sky Comms about it being James Milner's 900th club career appearance and only the 3rd against Forest, which I thought was incredible. Really.
Amazing. More from the Premier League Matchday 28 next, including Man United's Sunday afternoon victory over Crystal Palace. Top 5 races heating up. Villa lost away at Wolves. That was on Friday night. We'll come on to that game very shortly. Chelsea, we've heard about their encounter with Arsenal Sunday afternoon. Liverpool beat West Ham 5-2. Man United on Sunday made it 6 wins in 7 with a 2-1 victory over Crystal Palace. They went third in the table. And watching at Old Trafford was Carl Anka, who joins us now. Carl, thank you so much for joining us. You're going to tell us all about the early game at Old Trafford, which saw Manchester United continue their excellent run of form on this occasion against Crystal Palace. Up to third, Carl.
Absolutely ridiculous. If you think about how this looked like it was going to be another historically relevant low point at the end of January, when caretaker manager Darren Fletcher said he believed United were capable of qualifying for the Champions League. And that was the first time anyone attached with United this season has said the objective was Champions League football rather than Europa League or Conference League. And at the time, it felt unusual. And when the objective was announced, when Michael Carrick was unveiled, it became known that Jason Wilcox had told Michael Carrick the objective was qualifying for the Champions League, which again felt a little bit ambitious. And yet here we are, 6 wins in 7 matches. Okay, I would say the last 3 performances, particularly in the first half, haven't been outstanding. But this team just has a nous to it that I don't think many people thought they would have throughout this campaign.
And there's no real secret to it. It's just doing the things that people were asking the manager to do for months, if not years.
Yeah, possibly. Something that stuck out to me in his pre-match press conference on Friday, Michael Carrick described how a lot of the coaching staff worked to narrow it down when talking to the players. And when he talked, I asked him earlier about a little break in play when Ismail Sarr was getting treatment. And he talked to Matheus Cunha, and he said he was just giving Cunha little bits of information about when to go, when to stay wide and when to come inside. So it doesn't seem like this coaching staff with Carrick are overloading these players with too much information, which feels like a contrast to what was going on before under Ruben Amorim, where they were working to a very bespoke version of a 3-4-3 that also had loads of chameleon shapes that I think 2 or 3 times the players were just short-circuiting because there was too many things they have to have in their minds.
Cunha, who was involved in possibly the game's turning point when he went down under a hand from Maxence Lacroix, who'd given Palace the lead. Palace were 1-0 up when all this happened. A penalty resulted, which Bruno converted, and Lacroix was sent off. United then got the winner against 10-man Palace with a lovely ball from Fernandes for Benjamin Sesko.
Yes, a phenomenal cross from Fernandes and a phenomenal thumping header from Šeško. The interesting thing about this team right now is they are having 2 or 3 injuries and absences to their left footers. So Alessandro Martinez is currently out with a calf injury. Patrick Dorgu injured his hamstring against Arsenal. And then partway through this match, Luke Shaw went off with some sort of ailment. And the left-hand side is shortening and getting more and more narrow. And I think this is leading to the last 3 first halves United have been very stodgy, very slow. Teams understanding that if you clog up the middle, they can't really stretch play wide because Cunha wants to come inside, wants to get the ball into his right foot. So how Carrick goes around, alleviates this issue while navigating these injury spells, that will be the big thing now. In that they're in third, can they stay there?
Well, that's very much the question. Newcastle await on Wednesday. Magpies have won the last 3 meetings with Man United at St James's Park, but then that wasn't this Man United.
Indeed. St James's Park hasn't been the best hunting ground for United in recent seasons. I think this is because, Eddie Howe's done so well to get this Newcastle team to be so physically aggressive. And I'd say the last 2 or 3 United squads have been vulnerable to a bunch of burly lads that are willing to throw some elbows. But there is now a cynicism to United under Michael Carrick and his coaching staff that I could predict many yellow cards. I don't know if I predict many goals from open play.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. One last thing, Carl. Lovely to see that banner after recent comments by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Lovely to see that banner from the United fans.
Yes, so a banner was unveiled at the start of the second half saying Manchester United proudly colonised by immigrants. And it featured a number of Manchester United's most famous foreign-born players. Speaking as the son of an immigrant who loves Manchester United, I absolutely do not condone the statements Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, nor his sentiments. And I don't think his non-apology was very good. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has a lot of power and ability to make a lot of people in this country very happy if he can just get out of his own way and stop being needlessly mean. And I'd like him to do that, if possible.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Always love hearing a man who's moved to another country complaining about immigrants somewhere else. But then again, of course, we're all immigrants. That's the point, Carl. Anyway,
Absolutely.
lovely to speak to you as ever, with a smile on your face, and we'll catch up with you soon.
I look forward to it. You take care.
Carl Anka. So, trip to Newcastle for Manchester United. Crystal Palace, as we've heard, are going to be up against Spurs. Seb, were you shaping to offer something there?
I was going to say, I give Carlo a very well said on his Radcliffe comments.
Oh, there you go.
He articulated that really well.
Excellent. All right. Oh, Liverpool beat West Ham 5-2. This was Saturday, 3 o'clock. Part of a glut of goals in the Saturday 3 o'clock. So I think they're the highest scoring set of 3 o'clock games.
Only with Jim Ratcliffe. Hey, we could have watched him.
So true. So true. Well, you could have gone along, as indeed Jim often does, to his team's performances. 5-2 anyway was the scoreline here. Hey, this is nice. A team doing well scoring from corners, Daniel.
Yeah, brings a real tear to the eye. A good news story. Liverpool changed set-piece coach in January. I don't think it would be fair on Aaron Briggs, who left, to say that everything has changed since he left. I'm sure some of what he was trying
everything
to
has changed.
has
It's
been.
remarkable. It is
Yeah,
extraordinary. So before he left, they were the worst, I think. No team had scored fewer set-piece goals in the league than Liverpool at the turn of the year. He then leaves, and now no team has scored more since the turn of the year. Is that right?
Yeah,
Certainly
so
until
Sky
Arsenal,
Sports-
Chelsea, which may have moved the numbers a little bit.
So Sky Sports had a stat which was that Liverpool, by the time they'd scored their third goal, so all three were from corners in the first half, they'd scored 7 set-piece goals in a row, which is the longest streak in Premier League history since records were collected on that statistic. And yeah, but if you are going to test out some of your corner routines, West Ham are a pretty good team to do it against. They've conceded 15 goals from corners now, which is 6 more than any other team in the Premier League. So Nuno had sort of solved that a little bit, but the bad habits are coming back. I mean, letting Virgil van Dijk head the ball from 6 yards out when he's barely jumping seems quite one of the basics. And after the game, Thomas Tuchel said, yeah, that's weird. That's what we worked on all week. And I thought, yeah, which isn't great. West Ham were better than 5-2, but if you concede 3 goals from corners, then you aren't going to win. The best moment of their weekend will have been sitting back and watching 2 dreadful teams directly above them play on Sunday. Put it that way, because they are still exactly where they were, and they conceded 5. And if they sort out the corner issues, they've got enough in the final third. Jared Bowen needs to pull his finger out a bit. He's not been great recently. It's kind of been one of Somerville or Bowen, but never both. When they finally get both going, they've got the best attack of those 3 teams in the relegation battle at the moment, until Spurs get some more players back or Richarlison fully fit.
Up at the other end, this is a big result for Liverpool in that race for top 5 football. 4 victories in a row in all competitions, but 4 in 5 in the Premier League. And their newfound prowess from set pieces, I suppose, especially important with the likes of Florian Wirtz not available, and that kind of creativity from open play not there.
Yeah, and it's Cody Gakpo spoke after the game and kind of said that we've seen what Arsenal have done. We've seen what other teams are doing. This is how we can unlock games. And they do feel like cheap goals at the moment, and that's a compliment. If you can find those goals that you aren't necessarily expecting, they don't take you to knit together attacking, flowing, open play moves. If you get those sort of goals, then it does completely shift the narrative, because Liverpool weren't very good in the first half. West Ham had the better of the chances. West Ham had the higher XG in the match, even though they lost 5-2. But if you create those high value chances from set piece situations, it does give everything a completely different picture. And it's no coincidence that when they weren't very good at it at the start of the season, Liverpool looked really poor. They are playing better now, but they're just getting cheaper goals, and that's what you need, certainly this season.
Liverpool drawn Galatasaray in the Champions League last 16. There are a lot of rematches.
There are, yeah, but who's not involved? It's Manchester United. So you got Villa obviously got Europa League commitments. Chelsea and Liverpool got Champions League commitments. United will play a maximum of 40 games. Those other 3 teams will be pushing 60. I mean, there's absolutely no excuse for Man United not to finish 3rd from here.
Liverpool, before their encounter with Galatasaray this midweek, are going to be away at Wolves. That's on Tuesday.
The traditional curtain raiser for the FA Cup tie. They're playing on Friday night.
And they're playing again
well.
on Friday. Extraordinary. This Wolves, perhaps a little bit belatedly, appear to have finally woken up, and they are no longer in the running to be the worst Premier League side ever. Who was able to catch their 2-0 victory over Aston Villa on Friday night?
I did. I watched it all.
Yeah?
I bet we all did, yeah.
Because the beginnings weren't very auspicious, Matt.
No, but this is one of my moments of the weekend, actually.
Right.
I really like the Rob Edwards celebration that got a lot of stick. Like, what else have you got to celebrate?
What do you want them to do? Like, what do you, they sort of supposed to just look at their shoes and then,
This is one of their rivals that they've beaten.
They were able to put an axe through a season. If you can't enjoy that, then there's not much left in football for you. And Wolves, I think I've heard people say that if Wolves were playing like this 6 months ago, they'd probably be mid-table. I think that's a little bit overdone. They've clearly improved. And what I'd say is, given how hopeless their situation is, that's quite some coaching achievement to pick your players up off the floor, make them competitive, and to stop them doing the kind of, we'll just see out the season and then we'll work on our futures in July and, we'll stay fit for the World Cup if we're involved. And so I think that speaks really highly of his impact there.
And that is why his celebration was so fulsome, I think, because he's now going into next season with his reputation intact, if not Wolves. He got there. It took a long time for him to turn it round, but he can legitimately say, well, they were down by the time I got here, and at least I didn't make him the worst team in Premier League history. And that gives them, there's a long time left to go in this season. They might not win another game, but maybe not a bounce, but it will give the remaining players and the supporters some reason to believe that he would be the person to get them back into the Premier League quickly.
Okay. A possibly record-breaking feature of this game was the fact that both goals were scored by players named Gomez. João Gomez with the first, then Rodrigo Gomez in the 98th minute. Wolves actually ended the game with 4 Gomez on the field, which, as a commentator, Matt, you must find delightful.
Oh, I absolutely hate this. Chelsea at the moment in their under-21s have got Ollie Harrison McMahon and Harrison Murray Campbell, and it's very, very difficult, yeah. But I did enjoy the 2 Buenos, but it was just annoying that they hadn't got Facundo on loan from Brighton, because then it would have been a Bueno Notte in a very real sense. So, yeah, that one got away, but otherwise a decent evening for Wolves.
Not a decent evening for Aston Villa, but they've been having a lot of those of late. 1 win in the last 6, Daniel, in all competitions. Says Unai Emery, 1 month ago, I was dreaming about maybe winning the Premier League. It's an admission, isn't it? Now, he continues, we are in the average to be in the top 5. My question is why, in simple terms?
Well, they stopped scoring absolute screamers from outside the box, which doesn't really help. And I think that has been a little bit worked out, because they don't often play with wingers anymore. So you're asking a heck of a lot of them, Matty Cash and Luca Dean, who I don't think should have started over Ian Maatson at the weekend, but he did, fine. They don't offer enough in an attacking sense. So Villa are really narrow, which is fine when Morgan Rogers is pinging them in from anywhere or finding space to play little through balls to Ollie Watkins, whose movement just doesn't look right at the moment in the penalty box. That has stopped happening, and Villa are quite easy to defend when it stops happening. You just crowd the centre of the pitch. You let a fullback go as far as you want and then cross it in and hope to head it away, because Watkins is not brilliant in the air. And they become a bit one-dimensional. I think there is also a sense with, Villa released their accounts last week and they'd lost, I think, 80 million pre-tax loss again. There is a slight sense of the pressure of needing to get in the Champions League every season to allow this to continue at the pace it is and not slightly fall apart. I think that pressure will inevitably get to them. There will be talk of Unai Emery's position in the summer in terms of bigger clubs probably wanting him. It just all feels a little bit fragile at the moment.
It'd be interesting to see. Obviously, they're the only team trying to qualify for the Champions League who've got 2 cracks at it with the Europa League as well. Does there come a point where you prioritise one over the other? I wonder. And we should also make note of the fact that they're without 3 of their first choice midfielders, and despite the issues that they've got, if you take Kamara, McGinn and Tielemans out of
seriously good player.
So they're all big absentees.
Good context, Matt. Villa drew Lille in the last 16 of the Europa League, who curiously they haven't played already this season. Not sure how that one slipped through. Very shortly, we'll get on to the other games from this weekend, including the one in Glasgow. Totally Football Show European edition is out first thing on Tuesday. Seb's in it.
Exciting. Really excited for that one.
The Classicers on the menu. Harry Kane.
Scoring goals, quite a good player.
Is that 4 games in a row he's got a brace in?
Yeah, it's up to 30 goals for the season in the Bundesliga alone. So it's 12 off the single season record.
But he's one behind. If you were to plot their graphs, he's one behind Robert Lewandowski's
I think
record
also
season.
Lewandowski did the record in, I want to say, 28 or 29 appearances that season, which is remarkable. But I would also add into that Lewandowski was playing in a better side, a stronger Bayern Munich team. So, but yeah, Kane changed the game, scored the first.
Really? So if you were to put the Lewandowski Bayern Munich against this Bayern Munich using cloning technology and that, you think the Lewandowski one would do a number on these?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Is because if you look at the very best players, the kind of the pillars within the Lewandowski team, look at Kimmich, look at Neuer, Muller's in there, Lewandowski, of course. These are world-class players in their absolute prime. I think this Bayern Munich team are really, really good. I don't think that you've got any world-class players in their absolute prime, apart from probably Kane. Maybe you could make an argument of Meccano as well. I think he's become a very, very good central defender. But I would say Diaz, maybe Musiala still growing towards his prime.
Right.
Yeah, so we're going a bit too Euro.
Stop
then.
there, Seb.
That's,
Let's leave them hungry for Tuesday's
okay,
show.
we don't want to. Yeah,
want a
of
bit
course,
more.
of course.
Plus James Horncastle and we'll have Paul Balouz. Yeah, all that stuff, and Tom Williams.
I nearly ruined the.
No.
Yeah, I did.
Quite the contrary. Let's see. We were. Oh, Daniel, you went to Celtic v Rangers earlier this season, or was it Rangers v Celtic?
Indeed.
Right.
It was Celtic. It was Rangers versus Celtic. I went to.
Was
so
it? Yeah. And I think you described it as one of the worst
Same
games you'd been to in
Yeah.
an extended
Ever.
period of time.
Yeah.
Ever. Okay. What a shame that you didn't go along to today's encounter, today being Sunday as we recall, which sounded like a lot more fun, including a spectacular goal from Yusuf Chemiti, who only seems to score goals against Celtic or Hearts, but opened the scoring here with a brilliant bicycle kick. All sorts of things happened here. It was a good result, in particular for league leaders Hearts. Were you able to see any of this?
I saw the lot. It was a brilliant game. It was classic kind of, because that match, shall we say, generates extreme opinion as the game is going on. It was the perfect game for that, in that Celtic were absolutely rotten in the first half. Rangers were rampant. Chemiti, as you say, a brilliant overhead kick after about 7 minutes, and then scores again. And under Danny Roll, Rangers have had this slight tendency to tire late in games. He's quite kind of high intensity, pressing, and it was really working in the first half. And then Celtic gradually just sort of tilted the pitch in their favour and ended it really strongly and scored late on to get the draw, which is basically is the best result for Hearts. They're the ones who have celebrated that the most. Also, a shout out to Motherwell in fourth, who on Saturday won 2-0, and they have conceded 2 goals in their last 16 league games, I think, Motherwell, which is phenomenal. So they are like 7 points off now.
So Motherwell are possibly 7 behind, Hearts, who unlikely to be caught maybe by them, although they do have a game in hand. They also are only 4 points, Motherwell, behind Rangers with that game in hand, and 2 points behind Celtic, who've played the same number of fixtures. 1 defeat in their last 20. So there's a scenario where next season's Champions League representatives from the Scottish Premiership are Hearts and Motherwell, which would be...
and a shout out to Motherwell, because they're fan owned as well. So that club has been on a heck of a journey over the last 10 to 15 years. I went there last year. They do incredible work for the community with the fan owned stuff. It is a club just absolutely in its peak. And if they're not going to win the league, I don't think. If they finished above one of Celtic or Rangers this season, that would be an absolutely phenomenal achievement. I know Hearts are kind of getting all the focus, understandably, because they're still just about favourites for the title, but fair play to Motherwell. They're having a great time.
Excellent. Now, Premier League, Saturday, 3 o'clock. 3 matches were played at that time. They produced an incredible 19 goals. 7 of them were at Anfield. We heard about those before. 5 came at Newcastle. And another 7 were at Turf Moor. Possibly should have been more, actually. This was the game which saw Burnley losing 3-4 to visitors Brentford. Brentford, who took a 3-goal lead. Then Burnley pulled 3 back. Then Burnley actually took the lead. Then VAR said, no, you haven't. Then Brentford took the lead instead. Then Burnley still managed to pull off an incredible equaliser. And then VAR said, no, you haven't. it was one of the games of the season, if you could see it.
And yet it's this far down the running order. There'll be Burnley and Brentford supporters screaming into their devices. It was, yeah. It's a shame that it's coloured by the refereeing, though, isn't it? That's, I mean,
the delays as well, like disrupting the flow of emotion and the kind of the back and forward nature of that lasted 15 minutes. That's kind of my chief issue with.
What a huge disappointment for Burnley and for the supporters there at Turf Moor, the owner, etc. They had the remarkable comebacks. We saw one against Chelsea, the other one came back from 2-0 down to beat Palace, and looked like they were going to get at least a point at one stage, even maybe a victory that could really reopen their survival chances, but instead go home with a defeat. The VAR is a question. I don't think anyone's in any doubt now that the length of time for a process that was meant to only feature clear and obvious decisions, it's just extraordinary, the notion that you can take 6 minutes over that. I mean, it feels arrogant at this point for a body to feel, you stop what you're doing, we're going to take as long as we like with this, because we feel that what we do is more important than what you're doing.
I think completely undermine our colleague on the pitch who's already made the decision.
I think there's a lot of fear going on as well, because referees who then make mistakes with VAR usage, the VAR officials themselves get pilloried if they make an error. And so you have this over-diligence, which means that, look, fans watching on TV is one thing, but you've got people sat in stadiums in silence, confused, players milling about, no one knows what's happening. And you've got a game which ends 4-3 with a team that was 3-0 down at one point, and you're kind of sort of in monochrome from our perspective, right, because of these delays.
So the two Burnley goals that were disallowed, the first one was for Jaden Anthony being offside, and the kind of computer-generated image shows his arm offside. And then what would have been the equaliser is because after 6 minutes they decided that who was it who Ashley Barnes,
yeah, your old pal, yeah, almost identical to Evan Nielsen's goal for Bournemouth against Sunderland, I thought, and
the handball, right?
It's
JJ Bull, not JJ Bull, JJ Watt. Two people you confuse all the time, right? He went on Twitter to complain about it, saying, like, if it takes 6 minutes or however long it took to find it out, it's not clear and obvious, is it?
Yeah, that selfie that he was taking during the celebrations of the goal, that he didn't even get to upload it, poor chap. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, obviously it covers the fact that Burnley conceded 3 absolutely atrocious goals at the start of the game, which is probably worth mentioning. Fantastic for Brentford, obviously, but yeah, disappointing that it's the refereeing that we're talking about. And bless Scott Parker, who's always got this captain solemnly going down with his ship energy about him for not going two-footed in the way that Igor Tudor has today on the officiating and just saying, well, this is where we are, isn't it? This is what the game is these days, when I'm sure he actually felt rather stronger emotions about what happened.
It's a shame, as you say, that, Daniel, such a terrifically entertaining game should be leaving such a bitter taste.
Yeah, I mean, when we want more value for money because of raising ticket prices, the whole point wasn't that you raise ticket prices but have games 110 minutes long. That wasn't the exact way we wanted that to happen. I do think both decisions were right. I don't know if that matters in terms of the delays. Yeah, I think it hit his arm and I think his shoulder was offside. So I think that's what Scott Parker was saying. He was like, it's one thing to accept the decisions and fine, if it's handball, it's handball. It's the fact that it completely undercuts like the momentum of the game and the experience of going to watch football when you're sat there doing nothing for 5 minutes. Although there are times when Forest have played this season where I'd have been more than happy to just have 5 minutes of chatter.
I hear you.
But this is so the new IFAB recommendations are going to mean that we're going to start looking at corners and yellow cards or second yellow cards leading to red cards.
Are there many corners in football now?
It's going to mean the same thing, isn't it, Jimbo? You're going to have another thing which we examine under the microscope. And it's going to be more delays, and it's going to be more time for people like me to moan and complain and ruin podcasts.
Good chance to stick an ad break in there, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're just going to double check that corner
with my tinfoil hat on. Yeah. Let's examine the corner decision, and here's that decision brought to you by Specsavers, right? Yeah.
That would be a double.
Is that my Oppenheimer moment, right? Where I've something's going to destroy the world.
That one said. Yep. There you go. Bournemouth taking on Brentford this coming midweek. The Bees have now won the last 5 meetings with Bournemouth in all competitions. Bournemouth, who had a 1-1 draw with Sunderland Saturday lunchtime. and haven't lost in the league actually since they sold Antoine Semenyo, which is, I think, an unexpected consequence. Semenyo, who's currently doing wonders and, of course, scored the winning goal for Man City away at Leeds on Saturday afternoon. Daniel, unless you particularly wanted to say something about Bournemouth, Sunderland, I was just going to jump straight onto the one game remaining, as far as I can work out. Yep, which is Newcastle Everton. We talked about Arsenal Chelsea as a tale of two keepers. This was very much a similar narrative.
Yeah, poor Nick Pope, who has this really weird flaw in his game. He sort of makes shots look really good. He makes half chances into whole chances sometimes when he's not in form. And then when you've got Jordan Pickford producing mini miracles at the other end, and it's fair to say flexing in celebration towards a ground where he is not wholly liked. I mean, it gets bad to worse from Newcastle. It really does. They're closer to the bottom three than the top five now, which, given what happened last season and their pre-season expectations and the spend over the summer, Eddie Howe sort of repeatedly saying it's just sort of it's attitude and application and it'll come, and all the time they keep getting worse. But again, Everton are, we said it a couple of weeks ago when they last won away, but Everton are one of the best away teams in the Premier League this season. Only Arsenal have got more away points than them. It's a phenomenal effort from David Moyes. It's going slightly under the radar because they're not brilliant at home, and so there are still some kind of sort of muted reactions at the Hill Dickinson, but they're phenomenal away from home. They just punish you every mistake you make. So Pope makes a mistake. Gordon loses the ball in his own half and doesn't track. They're on you and they score. And the strikers who were really struggling in early season both scored. Tierno Barry and Beto both got goals. So, yeah, everything's coming up David Moyes.
Right. Tierno Barry's goal, a particularly delicious one, in off his backside, as replays showed why, if it's not too silly a question, why are they able to be so effective, so punishing on the road, but not at the Hill Dickinson?
I think there's probably a new stadium thing where they are...
But they're in a new stadium every week, surely, when they're on the road.
Well, they're more comfortable playing back foot, surprising, counter-attacking football away from home. I think the home fans would like to see a bit more front foot football. But these things can be psychological as well. If you win 3 away games in a row and you lose 3 at home, you're much more likely to win your next away game, than home advantage goes out the window. So I think it's just a accumulated momentum.
All right.
Hey, can I have a go at some of the things that are being said about Nick Voltemade at Newcastle?
Please do.
Can I have a little rant?
What's being said about him, first of all?
Well, he's been criticised in very, very severe terms, and he hasn't played particularly well, and that's entirely fair. I think to say some of the things that have been said about him is a really poor way to treat a young guy who's travelled a very long distance in a very short space of time. Went from being a free transfer of Werder Bremen to being one of the most expensive. Well, is he the most expensive player in Newcastle's history within the space of 12 months? And yes, he's struggled, but he's had to adjust to a new league. He's adjusted to a new country. He's learning a new language, living in a new part of the world. And we know all of these things. And you get guys who have never left England or never played anywhere else other than England, sort of commenting on that adjustment and kind of throwing them under the bus rather than showing a little bit of compassion. And yes, I'm a little bit defensive of guys who move over from the Bundesliga to England, but then that's because I understand the magnitude of the journey and the adjustment that has to go into that. And you're dealing with a person. Right? There's still a bit of room in the game for compassion somewhere, not to kind of use somebody as a sort of a way of garnering attention.
No, you're so right, Sam. And not just applicable to players who come over from the Bundesliga, of course. I wasn't aware of the vehemence of the criticism towards Voltemade, but I hope he's doing fine.
It's just a bit unkind,
right?
And
let's try and be kind.
That's what we should be as a podcast.
I think
society,
so. I think so. There you go. Newcastle have drawn Barcelona. Well, they met them already this season and got beaten.
I wonder what the bar is for Eddie Howe to kind of fend off any questions about his future over the summer. It's going to be very difficult to get past Barcelona, but they need to go deeper than they have done already in the Champions League and maybe win the FA Cup or reach the final of that, because their league position is going to be miles down on where it should be, as Daniel said. I mean, they're 13th, aren't they? Everybody from 13th to 19th this weekend lost, and they're part of that obviously not in any relegation strife, but real also-rans in terms of the Premier League this season, which is not where they anticipated being, I'm sure. So, yeah, interesting to see how much longer he retains the faith, maybe not of the higher-ups, but of the supporters. There was that tifo of him last week for the Champions League game, right? And clearly Newcastle fans are indebted to him and grateful for the fact that he won them a trophy, which they hadn't done for ages, but massive underperformance in the Premier League. And when that starts to really impact the home form, I always think that's when a manager's in trouble, particularly with a fan base as passionate as they are up there in the northeast.
Indeed so. Indeed so. Well, there you go. Problems for Newcastle and Eddie Howe. Well done to Everton. Midweek, are Everton home or away? Let's quickly check. I say quickly, but there's 3.
Home to Burnley.
Everton are at home. Well done to Everton. Tuesday night, they'll be back at home, with all that implies as they take on the newly spunky Burnley of Scott Parker. On Wednesday morning, we'll have a special Totally Football show reviewing what happens in those Tuesday night games. Then Thursday morning, of course, we'll be doing the Wednesday ones. And looking ahead to the weekend from Friday, it's FA Cup all over again. Anything you want to add in your spooky attic, as Tricky Jabs defines it, Daniel?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout.
Is it spooky? Attics often are.
No. It's lovely. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Leeds assistant manager Eddie Reamer for over the last couple of weeks we've had managers, and I mean Jose Mourinho, failing to look beyond the badge when asked about things more serious than football. But Eddie Reamer was asked about the Ramadan break in the game at Ellen Road being booed by supporters. And rather than saying, I don't know, I didn't hear any of it, he said, it's disappointing. We need to be better than that, basically. So it was a lot easier for Guardiola to do it, and his words will probably resonate more because he's Pep Guardiola. But good on Leeds United's assistant manager for not just sort of bowing out and ignoring the question.
Excellent. And many thanks for bringing that up. Daniel, we will be speaking to you, I hope, next week in the course of our FA Cup roundup. Have a super time in between now and then. Matt, thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
And we look forward to joining up with you again soon. Seb, you're back with us as early as Monday for Tuesday morning's European football show, which we've not mentioned enough in today's broadcast, but it will be there for you Tuesday morning. Many thanks to Jacob, producer Charlie in the booth, and to everyone who sent in messages and followed us on the YouTube. Here every Sunday if you like, listener. And all our podcast listeners too. Anyway, we're back soon, often and frequently throughout the week. Hope you join us soon. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.